Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. Good morning to the entire world. How are my peeps doing? Well, you know what, folks? Today is Tuesday, and we are going to have a great time, folks. Good morning to the entire world receiving the signals through our magic of El Internet, a thing created by we, the people. We, the people. Anyway, folks, without further ado, we're going to go to the studio where we're blessed with El Señor Howard Reynolds, Jack Van Beber, and El Señor Matt. Good morning, folks. How you guys doing?
All right. Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, my friend. How you doing?
We're good. We're good. All right. How are you doing? How are you doing, Egberto?
I am trying to do just fine. You know, I'm still sleepy not little anymore. My daughter used to say, I still have crocodiles in my eyes. Don't ask me what is crocodiles, but that's what she used to say all the time. Dad, I've got crocodiles in my eyes. But anyway, how's it going in the studio?
Everything seems to be working this morning, so that's a good thing.
You know, we can't have a good show. We can't start a program without first hearing from the one and only, the wisdom from Jacques Van Beber. I just love to say that name, Jacques Van Beber. Go ahead, Jacques.
Give me a little French sound in there, huh?
Yes, sir.
Jacques Van Beber?
Jacques Van Beber.
All right. Okay, good morning, Egberto.
Good morning,
all right.
brother.
The mainstream media is afraid or co-opted, meaning operated from the right to address Republicans' policies that explode U.S. debt. The big, beautiful bill aggressively redistributes its wealth up the chain, annihilates social protections like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP, and kneecaps that take a sledgehammer to the knee and break it. Climate action while talking about freedom and accountability. How sick is that? This means the corporate is free to pollute the earth like Elon Musk polluting South Texas as we speak. Look, billionaire corporate-run government is saying they don't want to pay for the health and the upkeep of the people because they are making the citizens into slaves. So basically, America, you're being enslaved by the leaders you elected. You need to vote better. You just need to vote.
Yeah, you need to vote. And look, I don't think it's wrong to say vote better. And actually, you cue me on to talking about two things here. One is you just mentioned South Texas. And, a lot of these corporations are always looking for tax breaks, reduce regulations, again, tax breaks and reduce regulations without looking at something called externalities, what their presence and their activities do to the environments, do to others, and who's at whose cost. You just spoke about South Texas and Elon Musk with the rockets. Those rockets, they burn some type of kerosene. I think they're still using some type of kerosene as their main fuel with some sort of an oxidant to increase its full burning and propulsion, etc. Now, interestingly, there are other chemicals that, as that thing is taken off, as they're building, these things are used, and it pollutes the area with, both the water table, etc. gets polluted. That's not the sole issue. The sole issue is it also gets people sick. And the problem is it doesn't get people sick immediately, right? These are things that accumulate over time as these substances get into the bloodstreams of these people, etc. So when Elon Musk and his company is long and gone, these people are going to have illnesses that they are going to have to take care of themselves. And with a country that doesn't give a damn about your health care other than as an expense, as something to make money, and not expense as a profit for major corporations. They generally don't give a damn. So therefore, we have companies, they get you sick. We have other companies who are supposed to fix your sickness if you can pay for it. And I mean, it's a big circle of who pays for these types of externalities. And I'm glad you brought up South Texas, because again, these are the same companies that don't want to pay taxes that can go into the coffers to solve the medical problems of people for a product they sell or a service they produce. They don't want regulations that are there to protect people from getting sick in the first place from the pollution and other things that they cause. Again, it's a vicious cycle, and the people always at the end, the people always paying the price are the standard the regular average American citizen. And that is the design of the economic system, an extractive system. We extract. The ones who are extracting, they neither want to pay taxes nor they want to be regulated. But you bear the cost. It is no more complex than that. You bear the cost. And at the same time, they pay a lot of external analysts, etc., to find the best way to convince you to continue voting against your interests, to continue to not hold those who should be held accountable. It is sad and it is poor. Now, I want to bring up another subject, and this comes directly from our great listeners because of a lot of ways in which we think. We had a call, and I want you guys to know that both to the chat and live calls, and even live calls to other programs when I listen to other programs. I take ideas and I take what people say to heart. In other words, I listen. I don't just dismiss when I hear comments and dismiss a comment if it's one that I don't agree with. Even after the program, I sit down and chronologically go through the things that people say. Because one of the things I've learned over time is if one person says something, that sentiment is likely felt or believed by a whole lot of people. That one person that steps up to say something, whether you like it or not, that is likely the sentiment of a whole lot of other people as well. So I take the people who step up to call or the people who step up to chat as a sample of what others think, and it always bears out. If you take a look at how polling works, that's how polling works as well, right? You take a representative sample of an audience, a representative sample of a people, and you actually get you can actually get what the masses really feel. So yesterday, I think it was Richard who called and castigated me, I'll say justifiably, because he believes that when I say things that we have things in common with, let's say, like a progressive like myself, or I think Richard is a progressive as well. We have that I have something in common with MAGA, and it really upsets him because, and I understand his upset. I understand where he's coming from. How can folks that, whether they know it or not, harm other people, have something in common with you? And then yesterday as well, our brother Patrick called in and he said, here's how I'm going to say it. And I'll say it in this fashion. We are all abused. We're all taken advantage of by this system. That is something that we have in common. And he used other examples. But then later on, I was listening to our other good brother's show on Conversations, and another caller called in and said he was happy that that folks, that there are some people who listen and doesn't try to change one's opinions and that kind of a number. And then I sat down and I thought for a minute and I said, okay, let's give some analysis to the way as host what we do and how we are supposed to address things, right? And it goes as follows. I don't think it is okay if somebody, there are many times there are false attempts of civility. As a board member of the Coffee Party several years ago, we were an organization that tried to bring all parts together. We call it transpartisanship. And what we try to do is bring people from all parties together and find commonalities and start discussions from things that we agreed on. And there were other offshoots to this. There's living room conversations and other organizations that attempt this same sort of a thing to get different people to communicate. And one of the problems that I ran into is that at Coffee Party, we had a faction, and these were most of the factions on the right that didn't want to bring things up that made other people uncomfortable. And it turns out that all these people that didn't want to make other people uncomfortable, the reality is they were the privileged group. And what I mean by this is as follows. If and this happens a lot within the Democratic Party. If you are a group that is hurting right now, if you are a group that is aggrieved right now, you want solutions and you want to bring this up now. If you are a group that everything is not the best, but it's okay, you can survive, you can live by, etc. It is okay for you to move at a slower pace, not to challenge people that are close to you, but that don't share your belief of civility and change, etc. You want to move slowly because you are concerned about their feelings. What about the feelings of those who are currently very aggrieved, right? And that is some of the issues with many who call, and generally on the right. There are things that are true, absolute truths. There are absolute fallacies, and then there are, meaning absolute lies, to put it bluntly. And then there are gray area places that one can reside. I mean, let me give a good example of that. It is okay to discuss whether we want big government or small government. I must entertain a discussion like that. I want right-sized government, which means in generally what conservatives would call large government. And why do I want that? Government, as defined, is we, the people, things that we decide we. Notice what I'm saying. We, all of us, the vast majority of us want to do. That's government. What the right and the neoliberals have done with the Powell memo and other things is demonize that thing. They had to demonize that thing first. They had to get you to hate that thing first. Because if they get you to hate that thing, everything else, nothing else really matters. Nothing collective really matters after that example. So government is we the people. I believe in government large enough, larger than any corporation by orders of magnitude. And why is that? A corporation isn't a democracy. A corporation will always be an autocracy. It has an executive with ultimate power, the executive and the board. That's an autocracy. That isn't a democracy. They decide what employees are going to do. They decide all these features. They do what's best for the shareholder, not what's best for the people they serve. And the god of capitalism said as much when in 1970 something, he wrote one of the most important articles to executives. And that was, you are there to serve your shareholders. You are not there to protect the environment. You are not there to give women's rights. You are not there to make sure that a society together works. That's not your job. The executive's job is the profit of the shareholders, and you do whatever is necessary to maximize the profits of your shareholder. That's what the corporation is designed for. So when an executive is doing those things, I don't blame them. That's just how it is. I blame us for not having that government big enough to tell those executives, you can do whatever you want to do to maximize profits for your shareholders, but you will not harm the public at large in doing so. That's why I believe in a government big enough to blunt any corporation, because that government is whom again? We the people that we elect. We the people elect that government. We the people tell that government what to do. We the people can't tell an oil company what to do. We the people can't tell a seed grower what to do, right? We can't. There's a whole lot of different features in there. So one of the calls I heard to my brother's show said again that, he was happy that some do not try to change others' opinions. Just let it be. Let it be. To which I say, hogwash. And let me give the perfect example with COVID. When the debts and financial calamity caused by COVID is directly proportional to the mainstream media, given the thug in chief that we have in office, the dummy in chief that we have in office, latitude to give plausibility to stupid ideas. I am blunt there because over 1 million Americans paid the price for that dereliction of duty. Other countries followed science. We followed rhetoric and evil statements. When we allowed to cauterize that, when we were slow in not knocking down this disease in the beginning, when we were slow to not call out the evil of Donald Trump, not counting the amount of people off of a ship that were infected and then released into the public, infecting the public. When we did not take very early into the pandemic the 2-week notice and called out all those who stupidly, and I don't speak like this generally, but people died. Over 1 million Americans died. That didn't look. A virus, a drug, a bacteria cannot spread if it doesn't have it within which to spread. And the great leaders of Australia and New Zealand proved that when they followed the rules. And while we were dying, they had grocery stores open and people moving around their countries. Countries that were much poorer than we were followed the rules of masking up, because it's not rocket science to understand that if you get less aerosol from people breathing in the atmosphere, you would get less disease. It doesn't matter that at red state Kansas had 2 different counties, one that followed the rules and one that didn't, and that more people died. A lot of people died in the ones that didn't follow the rules. So me saying, I'll give you a chance to just have your opinion. The people that had a bad opinion that wasn't called out caused people to die. So you're not doing a favor with a false civility of not calling out those that are saying things or doing things that harm people. There is no civility in that. None. In fact, there is evil in that. That you are, for the sake of civility, you're causing people to die. For the sake of civility, you're causing people to be maimed. So no, truths, lies, and gray areas. Truth, lies, and gray areas. On politics done right, we accept truths and gray areas. Lies are unacceptable. We will always call them out, and we will never allow, ever, absolute lies to make it on air if we can stop it. We will not be the promoters that cause the harm of people with a false civility. Ever. Ever. Now, again, I mentioned about what happened during COVID. The same thing is happening with this big, beautiful bill. It must be called out. And anybody that is going in support of something that maims, kills, and harms, read the damn bill for the sake of moving money to the wealthy. And this is not hyperbole. This is what it's designed to do. And everyone who is supporting it, anyone who's supporting this bill, I mean, whether it is going to harm you personally or not, remember, you are supporting the murder of your fellow American citizens with this bill if passed in the form that it is right now. This is not up for debate. This is not hyperbole. Read the bill. It is just like the Texas legislature, by not accepting the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act that would ensure that a lot of people get health care, is killing Texans. That's not up for debate. So nobody can call here and tell me, well, we just aren't going to do the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, and there's something good about that. False. You're killing your families and your neighbors. That's not up for debate. That is not up for debate. So yes, we should be civil with our brothers and sisters. And yes, we do have in common with a lot of folks. But as Richard, who called in yesterday, when he castigated me, he was right. Some of these people are simply hateful and evil and cause harm. Now, with that same token, that will never stop me from always trying to reach as many as I can. Because you know what? That is humane. And absent doing that, it means that we give the evil ones, the evil corporations that and not all of them are evil. I love Costco. Costco support its people. Costco believe in giving opportunities to everybody. I'm just using Costco as an example versus Target, who fell into bed with Donald Trump and is paying the price right now. But so, I mean, this was completely, this part of my narrative was completely based on of our brother Jack, as usual, tickling my funny bone. Anyway, folks, I'm going to get into the rest in a minute, but we are in Fund Drive. We're at 626 and I'm at 0. I want to ask you so kindly to start call in 713-526-5738, extension number 1. 713-526-5738, extension number 1 to contribute, or go to kpft.org, kpft.org, hit that donate button and donate the best you can. Later on, I'm going to replay. Tom is coming to Houston. Tom Hartman is coming to Houston. Want to give you guys a little flavor of Jimmy, I'm coming to you in a minute. I just want to salute some of our folks in the chat. All right, welcome aboard. Lisa Blair from Atlanta, Georgia. Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. E2247 from all over. Harry Denson from Missouri City. Harry says, good morning, Egberto, Jack, Sandy, and Howard. Well, include Matt in there because Matt is in the studio this morning, my dear brother Denson. We also have Bruce Pollard from Kingwood, Texas. Bruce says, the combustion products of kerosene and liquid oxygen are many. Some of them are not healthy. Welcome aboard, Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. In the chat For Substack, we have Soy, Joy Gaiman, Ubit Sulaiman, Cynthia Ashgar, Louis Uri. We also have For a Better World. He says, the very big, very bad budget it passed will destroy our country. Please call the Senate today and protect our democracy and say no to every part of it. The telephone number is 202-224-3121 for the Senate. I believe it is 202-224-3121. Welcome aboard, Uju. How you doing, beautiful? Muddy Bog is in the house as well. Roosevelt Thomas, G Beard, I hope you heard the beginning of the show. I actually gave you kudos for calling me spineless yesterday because while I'm not spineless, I understand the sentiment. You're right. Sue Sharko, welcome aboard. Flo, Liberate Congress, Julie Buchin, Ian Kwon, Candy Kennedy, MX, Bunny Brindlin, Martin Ward, Amy Petrie, and many others. Jimmy, come on in.
Hey, Egberto, I want to talk about Los Angeles. There were people out there protesting, I believe, about Gaza, and President Trump sends in 2,000 National Guardsmen that were not requested by the mayor or the governor, both who have said that they were handling the situation just fine. And so Trump is causing a lot of trouble there by sending out 2,000 troops and threatening to send more Marines out there. And some of the pundits have said he would not have done that had the governor been Republican. So it looks like he's just trying to stir up trouble. And he is doing it. He's doing things that were not requested and not wanted. And so I think this is another bad mark on President Donald Trump, causing trouble.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Jimmy. Let me put it a little bit starker than that, right? This big, and it all turns into the big bad bill. He calls it the one big beautiful bill. We know that it's the big bad bill. What I did is I went to the different newspapers around the country, and all of them, the lead story is no longer the big bad bill. The lead stories are the feud with Donald Trump and Musk, and that 4-block area in Los Angeles that's having some disturbances. 4 blocks. This and so you are so correct that what he's doing is wrong. You're so correct that if it was a Republican governor, he would not have done it. But you're also correct. You're also inferring that there's ulterior motives. And the ulterior motives for all of this is to take our eyes off of the ball. So what I said, Jim, is the following. I would not write any articles over the next few weeks that have much to say about California. But all week, I will be writing articles that speak a lot about the debt created by the big bad bill, by the killing that's created by the big bad bill, and all the bad things that's created by the big bad bill. Anything else you want to say, Jimmy?
Yeah, we need to stop the big bad bill by letting our senators, Ted Cruz and
Ted Cruz and John Cruz. Yeah.
Ask them to vote against that big bad bill, so it will be defeated. That's what we personally need to do here.
You're absolutely right, Jimmy. So let me just tell you, first of all, thank you for calling. Also, as well, thank you for being a great supporter of Politics Done Right on KPFT. All right?
Glad to do it.
Thank you, brother.
One more thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Locally, the Texas legislature is passing this bill that requires every classroom to have a copy of the Ten Commandments on the walls there. They should not be doing that. That's a clear violation of separation of church and state. So that Louisiana had the same law, and the federal courts have already blocked it by saying.
Jimmy, I got a question for you, Jimmy.
State. Sure,
Jimmy, I have a question for you. Do you know if the law specified the minimum size of that the 10 Commandments that they post? Do you know if it said that, the minimum size?
I believe some of it is supposed to be a large size. Okay. Large size, supposed to like 2 by 3 feet, something like that.
Okay, the reason I asked that is,
but also they got it where the money for the posters is supposed to be donated rather than paid for by the government.
Well, okay, interesting, right? Private sector donate something that is an obligation that everybody has. Amazing. But here's the other thing. I mean, this is a funny thing, Jimmy. I think it was Bruce who called in earlier and said, yeah, maybe what we should do is print the 10 Commandments in microfiche, like on a stamp, and then just stamp it on the wall, but like the size of a postage stamp. But anyway, thank you, Jimmy. You have a wonderful day. I got some more calls I got to take. All right.
Thank you, Egberto. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Moses. How you doing, beautiful? Come on in, Moses.
Good morning, brother. ¿Cómo está?
Estoy muy bien, corazón. Habla conmigo, por favor.
Okay. Let me quick say, you are your brother's keeper. Blow the trumpet. Let me give you a simple analogy. If you see the child attempting to pull a pan of boiling water off the stove, and you walk away thinking he knows better, he won't do that. If that child pulls the boiling water over his body and receives burns that defaces or kills him, it goes without saying that you are responsible for that child's hurt.
Amen.
You saw the danger, and you did not say anything to save that child from harm. So therefore, when we look at the big bad bill, and we look at all of this, oh my God, we have to say and tell others, you are going to hurt yourself. Go and see for yourself. But if we sit there and don't say anything, and there's a pandemic, or there's a hurricane, FEMA is not there, we can't get to the hospital, then no one cannot tell us the hurricane is coming because they have blocked it, and they told us they were going to do it. We saw them doing it. We didn't say anything. When people's bodies begin to float, like the bodies in the time of Noah in the water, you have to stand up there and say, I could have said something. Here's my neighbor floating by. I could have said something to save him. And that is the analogy of what is happening today.
I am so with you, Moses. I'm so with you. Thank you so kindly for those words. I think very important words. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You have a wonderful day, Moses. Let's go to Johnny. Come on in, Johnny.
One more theoretical Tuesday, I guess, huh?
Yes, sir.
I don't know the context of this person using the word spineless in reference to you, but not from where I stand, where I sit. It takes a lot of guts, a lot of intestinal fortitude and patience and intelligence to live in a place that's where you're surrounded by wealthy Republicans, white Republicans. Please, you know who's spineless? The guy who goes up on stage and hugs an American flag and kisses the bunker gear of a dead fireman and says that he loves the poorly educated. That is the mark of someone who's got no spine. He's a chicken hawk of bully. That Agent Orange up there in the outhouse in Washington, D.C., that guy deserves that person's ire, not you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate I appreciate your kudos. I want to give a very, very big thank you to Edward N. Edward N. Thank you so kindly. The first contribution of the month. I mean, not of the month, of the morning. At least it means I won't go with a donut hole. We could use about 6 more of brother Edward N. Thank you so kindly, Edward, for your contribution, which is a sustainer. Thank you so kindly. Let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yes, good morning. So you've been talking for 42 minutes and raised 1 donation. I bet I can get you some.
I'm so terrible, man. Yeah, but go ahead.
I bet I can get you some.
All right.
Yeah, I bet I can get you some just by talking. Okay. Generally, people, they sponsor up after I speak.
Okay.
So there's riots going on in Los Angeles, and don't call them anything other than riots. Not an insurrection, not a disagreement of policy from the Trump administration or ICE. It's nothing but a riot. They're burning cars. riding motorcycles with Mexican flags. Do you think they have my support or the support of others by doing so? No, they don't. No, that's it. Try that in Mexico City. See what happens. You're shot and killed, aren't you?
All right, Brian. Brian, let me just say something though. Okay, it's not all Los Angeles 4 city blocks, but I get you. You believe everything that you see on TV, but that's fine. Anything else, Brian? Real quick,
4 city blocks.
We're close to the end.
You just said 4 city blocks.
Yes, sir. I did say 4 city blocks.
Greenwashing. Yeah. Okay.
I've seen the aerial. Totally I've seen the aerial, sir. That's all I'm saying. I've seen the aerial. Anything else?
It's not 4 city blocks. They stopped the freeway system, shut it down, did graffiti on the walls.
Yes.
They firebombed the police.
Just for your information, I'm guilty of shutting down of participating in shutting down a freeway in St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. So I don't look at that as being something that's bad. I look at that as a protest. So anyhow, I've done that before.
It's not a protest.
Actually, 4 years ago.
Not a protest.
Yeah. All right.
It's not a protest.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
It's a riot.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
Yeah. Compared to January 6th. You want to try that?
Oh, compared to January 6th.
Send out the National Guard.
All right. Yeah. I tell you what I gotta go, Brian. Brian, I can't keep you much longer. You get a chance to call every day. Have a great day. Let's go to Sister Betty. Come on, Betty.
Good morning. I'm Brian. He's an amateur and he fabricates. He is conceited. I want to talk about Tom Hartman. If the place be the church he's at and it bothers you, I went to church on Saturday nights for a good 15 years or so and listened to the band and dance. That was church. It was good. And you will walk away with a good feeling. Tom gets his ideas when he's walking. He walks to work with his wife. He does not like Putin. He has a great wit. Love y'all.
Thank you so kindly, Betty. Love you too, girl. Let's go to Tag. Come on in, Tag. On Tag, you're
Hey, Egberto.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Couple things about money. It seems to be like the right wing wants us to believe that it doesn't matter how much money the government you give the government, that they're gonna waste the money. The right wingers want us to believe that the government just wastes all kinds of money. So we can never give the government enough money because they're just going to waste it. The second thing about money is that the right wingers want us to believe that if you give money to the big business or the corporations, that it's going to help the economy. Let's just give all our money to big business and the 1%, and then our economy will be just fine. And those are both fallacies in my mind. I don't think that either one of those are true. But there's a third thing about money, and that is when you give your money to KPFT, it never gets wasted. So, and there's only a certain amount of money that KPFT wants. So it's much, much better. So anyway, that was my little talk about money. One thing I wanted to say about this thing in LA.
Yes, sir.
Never be fooled. There are people there that are not protesters that are doing violence.
Amen.
And it's the same thing. It happens every time that they bring in some insurrectionists to burn some cars or throw frozen water bottles at the authorities, and then they blame it on the protesters. And I saw a picture last night of a guy in all black hoodie, and he was up on a police car kicking a window in. And when you see these people in all black doing stuff, those aren't protesters. The protesters, they're out there in the regular street clothes with their faces exposed. Those are the protesters, and they never do violence. It makes me sick to see these people doing violence, and they hide their identities, and they never get arrested or shot. And a guy on a police car kicking a window in, they ought to cut him down, and then find out that he's been paid by the government to be there. So anyway, that's my money talk for the morning. Thanks, Egberto.
Thank you so kindly, Tag. Johnny, come on in real quick, but I got to go to a station break right after you. Johnny, real quick.
Okay, quickly. Without KPFT, you could not rely on the local NPR affiliate to find conversations with people in your neighborhood talking to each other and contradicting each other and checking each other, keeping a check. Like with Brian's convenient amnesia today. He likes to point out about property damage. But the property damage is being done by state actors as well as righteously angry people. You keep provoking people. You keep kidnapping people. You beat them up. You disappear them. At some point, there's a boil over. It's human nature. How about his side of the aisle? What did his people do on January 6th? They pooped and peed inside the halls of Congress that we paid for.
And they broke doors. They broke windows. They murdered cops. They did a whole lot of bad things. So, and they caused the death of cops. Come on. That goes without saying. Thank you so kindly, Johnny. Got to go to a station break. While we are doing the fund drive and I can't do extensive programming, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot going in the background. I have a professor, an interview with a professor on fascism that's waiting to be played. I have an interview with a woman who is speaking about black capitalism, or the black capitalist is what she called her book. I have the full interview of Lena Hidalgo ready to go. I have the full interview of Tom Hartman ready to go. I have several other interviews that I've been doing just ready for you guys that you're going to love, that you're going to learn from. So the work continues, even if as I'm here asking you for your pledges, asking you to give us a few of your spare dollars. The work continues, and knowing that I have to come with stuff that's moving forward. The work is being done, even as we're pitching. Welcome, Liberate Congress for a Better World. Welcome, Make Privacy Great Again. Welcome, Grace T. Welcome. I don't care about either side. Welcome, Bob Rieger. Welcome, welcome. Skip Diger. Welcome. We also have Aniel and Justin Shaw, Jennifer Hunter, and Ernie Boxall. Thank you for being here. Joy Gammon. We also have G. Beard. Thank you for being here. I think G's the one who called me. G, aren't you the one who called me spineless? You know, I still love you, brother, because I know exactly what you mean. You know the reality. Hey, Steve, thank you for that for getting the donation for that T-shirt. Drop me a line, you'll get your bumper sticker. Edward N, drop me a line, you get your bumper sticker. And this is the piece that I wanted to talk about last week, but with all that was happening, we had to really get some other stuff involved. But this is about our national debt. I'm not just talking about the deficit. Remember, the sum total of all the deficits over the years is what give us a national debt, which right now is at somewhere in the order of, I think, 30 trillion, several trillion dollars. But how did we get there? Here's the thing. Remember, when Clinton left office, we left with a balanced budget. They had some tax increases, so the deficit there was a balanced budget, no deficit, and we started to pay down the cumulative debt. All right, let's remember that. That was the trajectory that we were on. Bush comes in, a Republican comes in and reversed the whole thing by giving a huge tax cut. That tax cut ballooned the deficit, the budget deficit, and increased our debt. Then, of course, we did the irresponsible thing in lying ourselves into a war that cost us a lot of money. Steve Rattner, in this report that I'm going to show about the debt, didn't quite put that the expenditures for the Iraq war were huge, caused the problem. The expenditures for recovering from the supposedly the attack around the world to solve the terrorist problem, all of that was wasted money that we all paid for that was accumulated onto the deficit. Likewise, we had Donald Trump come in and he did two things to balloon the debt even more so than anybody else. The first thing is he gave that huge tax cut to to the wealthy mostly. Yes, people got their deduction increased, etc. But most of the money went to the wealthy. The vast majority of the money went to the wealthy. But above and beyond that, his incompetence of dealing with COVID and allowing COVID to turn into a pandemic. What we had was something spreading that could have been mitigated. If we didn't stop people from wearing masks, if we didn't have the arguments on ivermectin, if we didn't have the argument of injecting stuff into your blood, if we didn't have the argument as far as keeping people at home in the beginning for 2 weeks, just saying, let's let this stuff burn out like they did in Australia, New Zealand, etc. Hold back. Just let people hold back for a minute, and every time you play whack-a-mole with the disease after that, right? For the things that slip through, you play whack-a-mole. There were countries who did that. There were countries who were so poor they couldn't afford the medicines. Panama is one of them. The people followed the rules. They wore the mask. They stayed home when they needed to stay home. And it never spread and killed people and cost the amount of money that it costs in the United States. So that budget deficit, all those incentives that we had to give for COVID, we would not have needed it if we didn't have an incompetent thug running the White House then. Then, of course, in 2008, under Obama, we had the big bank bailout, 2008, because of the incompetence of wealthy bankers who turned derivatives and credit default swaps and all these different financial instruments. They collapsed on themselves because these guys were creating money out of nothing, creating financial instruments because they thought they were so smart. Of course, they're not. But they thought they were so smart. So they created all these financial instruments and they turned things like mortgages, etc., into these commoditized instruments that they sold to people after the real estate market collapsed from their own doing. The Obama administration, starting with the Bush administration, then the Obama administration, bailed them out. So all of that went into the national debt again, because it ballooned the deficit and it was added to the national debt. So we had two humongous tax cuts, Bush and Trump. Then we had the complete horrendous handling of COVID that affected the entire world because of a neophyte thug in the White House that got a lot of people who should not have been killed from COVID because they allowed fallacies, they allowed misinformation, they allowed it's simply ridiculous. Then, of course, again, the 2008 recovery, the budget bill, all the other stuff that they call increase in discretionary spending, etc. All this increase in discretionary spending that they always talk about, you need to keep discretionary spending expanding at the same rate of the economy. Hey, I agree with that. But why was discretionary spending not being able to pay it for? Because you had all the damn tax cuts. So even as Steve Rattner in this piece that I'm going to play explains the truth, the thing that these economists, this capitalist economists refuse to talk about is that absent the tax cut, none of these things would have occurred. We would have had a balanced budget and we could have increased our discretionary spending as it should have been increased, right? Meaning Social Security and the Social Security isn't discretionary spending, but the other type of spending, we should have increased them because, again, there are new things that we want to get done in a society. Just tax the folks appropriately. We see the kind of taxation that we're given right now, how it has caused the millionaires and the billionaires to just keep multiplying their monies for producing nothing. They just get rich from being rich and they get richer from being richer. That's what's occurring right now. So the entire fault of the budget deficits, the big debt, not the deficit solely, but the big debt, is one, tax cuts by Republicans, Obama and Bush giving a whole bunch of money, TARP and all the others, to the bankers, and also, again, not taxing enough. Now, giving you that background, I want you to listen to Steve Rattner, but listen to it with the framing that I've just pointed out, because he's not going to tell you the complete picture as far as the debt. by the end of it, and looking at those charts, you should easily see that if we had, after Clinton left office with a balanced budget, had we followed the rules and taxed appropriately, handled COVID appropriately, and not allow bankers to do what they did with credit default swaps and all of that, have the appropriate regulations, and made sure that COVID and everything else was handled appropriately, we would have had a balanced budget and a booming economy, because we would not have had these thugs that we have in finance running our country. It would have been all of us collectively. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Steve, let's continue this conversation about the so-called Big Beautiful Bill and its impact on the national debt.
But let's take a look at what the bill as it was written in the House would actually do. First of all, it's important to note that we're already, as I think everybody knows, starting with a really large deficit. Our deficit is almost $2 trillion right now. While it's projected to go down slightly, it would otherwise then keep climbing up to about between $2 and $2.5 trillion. That's if we do nothing. The Big Beautiful Bill, you can look at two ways. As it is written, it would do this. So it would have the budget deficit still higher than we have. But there are a bunch of gimmicks in there in terms of making things expire that aren't really going to end up expiring. And so I think the real way to look at this Big Beautiful Bill is it would take the deficit out to $3 trillion in 2035. And that becomes a huge amount. And then you see what it does to the debt. So right now we're sitting here with $37 trillion of debt compared to a GDP. The whole size of our economy is only 30 trillion, meaning our debt is bigger than our economy. That's the only other time this has happened was in World War II. So we're starting with a huge debt load. And then no matter really what you do, because the deficit stays high, no matter what you do, the Big Beautiful Bill makes it worse. You could end up out here with $55 trillion of debt. So the debt growing faster than the economy, this becomes unsustainable. And this is what the deficit hawks are really focused on.
What are the risks to a debt that is larger than the economy?
Well, what you've seen happen in the last few weeks as this bill has been moving through Congress is periodic spurts of interest rates moving up. The federal government has to sell this debt periodically. It rolls over, it matures, they have to go out in the market and sell it. And the risk is that we pay higher and higher interest rates for our debt. And that in turn, as we'll look at in a few charts, squeezes out other kinds of spending and puts inordinate pressure on our debt and forces some really, really unpleasant things. At some point, reversing tax cuts when the market says it's enough. We're not going to keep financing these kinds of deficits. It's really a burden we're leaving to our children and our grandchildren. And that is an incredibly selfish act that we're doing.
All right. Speaking of tax cuts, let's look to your second chart. These are, in your words, absolutely massive tax cuts, dwarfing anything we saw from the first Trump administration.
Yeah. So this bill, again, there's a bunch of gimmicks in it. You can look at it as a $2.4 trillion bill. You can look at it as a $4 trillion increase to the deficit. But compare it to all the stuff we've done in the last few years. The bipartisan infrastructure law looks puny compared to this. The rescue plan, half the size of this. The CARES Act, which was Trump's COVID rescue plan, $1.7 trillion. And here, Trump's signature tax bill from his first administration, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, $1.5 trillion. So compared to his last tax cut, we're talking about something that is massively different. Why is it so big? He wants to extend all the tax cuts that were set to expire in the last bill. This was the gimmick in the last bill. They use these gimmicks to make these bills look smaller because then they come back and extend the tax cut, increase the standard deduction, increase the child tax cut. And then these are a bunch of campaign promises that Trump made sort of out of nowhere in states and in places where it would be politically advantageous. No tax on overtime, no tax on car loan interest, no tax on tips, and so forth. They want to increase defense spending. He promised no taxes on Social Security for seniors. You can't do that through this process, but he came up with a workaround to basically provide the same thing. And then there are the cuts. And this is what Elon Musk is on about, rescinding the IRA climate funds. This is the EV tax credit in here. And these are the Medicaid cuts, $700 billion, which have not only gotten criticism from Democrats, but even Republicans like Josh Hawley, a very conservative Republican, has said this can't happen. And so, as we talked about in the last block, you've got people on both sides of this pushing in different directions, which is going to make this unbelievably difficult to get through the Senate. And then it has to go back to the House and be reconciled reconciled with the bill that they passed.
Let's go to your third chart. You say debt is difficult to tame.
Why did Elon Musk fail so spectacularly? The president had talked during the campaign about cutting $2 trillion. Elon talked about cutting $1 trillion. The final number is probably less than 150 billion, maybe 100 billion. And by the way, yes, people are dying because of that. That's been now well documented. But the reason it's so hard to cut is because so much of the budget is kind of off limits. Nobody wants to cut Medicare. Nobody wants to cut Social Security. You can't cut interest, obviously. People want to increase defense. Veterans benefits, probably not. Food stamps, maybe a little bit, something there. And then, of course, you have the Medicaid piece down here. But everything else that's left out of a $7 trillion budget is only about $1 trillion. You can't cut $2 trillion out of $1 trillion. You can't cut $1 trillion out of $1 trillion. And so that's why when Doge got in there, they found there really wasn't very much to do. But let's just say a word of what could have been, because we've now had 25 years of basic fiscal irresponsibility going back to the Bush tax cuts in 2001. And so if we had not increased discretionary spending faster than the economy, we could have increased it, just not as fast as we did. If we had not had all these tax bills, the Bush tax cuts and then the TCJA and so forth, the recession response, you could say we really had to do, but it costs a lot of money. But in any event, if we had not done this stuff, we still would have had a government that was growing, and we would have ended up in 2021 with essentially no debt. This was the missed opportunity. Now, because so much of the spending is constrained, now because we're paying so much interest, it's impossible to do something like this.
Well, look, I hope you attached the preamble of what I spoke about onto what Rattner had to say to see the entire picture. There's one other thing that I want to point out. I remember Doge, that thing that was supposed to save a lot of money. We knew that it could not have worked. Doge was never there to save money. Doge was always there for these guys to get in there and take all our data. And God knows what they're going to do with our data. They have their servers in there. They're monitoring a whole lot of stuff. That's what Doge is there for. And by the way, and in the process, Elon Musk became what I call a virtual assassin, because with his irresponsible cutting of USAID and other policies, a lot of people died. And in fact, there's documentation that shows he has killed over 100,000 people by holding back all the work that USAID does. So much for the humane country, so much for the people who believe in the sanctity of life. They have come in and destroyed it. And with the bill that they want to pass now, and it's not only foreigners that are going to get killed, but Americans are going to be, what again? Murdered by their own government as these policies come into play. And we'll continue to talk about it. I tell you what, for anybody who contributed to Politics Done Right, drop me a line at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, your address. I'll send you your bumper sticker. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. I love you all. Thank you all. Rest of the program at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Email me at kpft@politicsdoneright. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Democracy Now! Is up. You know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing